Do 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 do. How you doing? Hey, I was laying out in the hammock, which is like 3 years old. I take it downstairs in the wintertime. You know, getting some sun, laying in my hammock. Yeah, I know I'm fat. By the way, I invented, and I have had a video from like a year and a half ago, a kickstand for these solar panels. I've permanently installed. I have something like over 30 solar panels in this house. I've got solar panels out the yin-yang in this house. Yeah, so I can actually make a very intelligent recommendation on solar panels. Anyway, I got them outside permanently charging a bank of 4 300 amp hour lithiums, which is a lot of power, you know, for when the power goes out. And it's gone out a lot in the past 2 years. It's actually gone out probably more times in the past 2 years than it has my entire life living here. Anyway, I was laying on my solar panel. You're going to like this, trust me. It's a very short story. And I was laying out there in my skivvies. That's the word I'm going to use. And, you know, I'm done baking in the sun, so I get up in the hammock and I put my feet on the ground. And that's when I hear a very quick ripping sound. And so I jackknifed through the bottom of this. I jackknifed through the bottom of my hammock. My feet are sticking straight up in the air, and my head is, you know, so my whole body is kind of like jackknife like that, and pretty funny. My friends that bought a farm just south of here in near London, Kentucky, they got a hammock, but they didn't want it. It's the same one I had because I recommended it, and it is a really good one, but they didn't want it, and it's like, and I take it, it's in the way. They gave it to me like a month ago. So I had that brand new unused hammock sitting out there. And this is where my motto comes into play that I've said for ages, is that redundancy is God. Not literally God, of course, but redundancy is God. So I could fix that hammock, and it would have been too much work, actually. I threw it in the garbage, and 10 feet away, less than 10 feet, I grabbed the brand new, never used hammock, and I put it into place. So that one bit the dust. I actually, you know, tore some of the skin off my knee and my elbow when I jackknifed through the bottom of the hammock. It's really funny. You would have loved it. You would have really, really laughed your tushy off over that one, because, you know, fat tattooed guy in his skivvies laying out. Yeah, just trying to get some sun. I do that in the summertime. It's good for you. Yeah, skin cancer, all that other stuff. But redundancy is God. I'd actually like to talk about a couple of things that are actually going on. There's a lot going on. I told you in the video a few days ago that the United States would probably try to talk down what's going on over there, and apparently that they've had success in talking down escalation of conflict. It apparently seems like it's still on the edge, but I said the United States was working hard on that, so apparently they've had success. Not only that, but of course Iran is incredibly scared to death of the military hardware that Israel has, and wisely and intelligently they should be, so I don't know if that's talked down or not, but there's a lot of stuff going on, and what's going on in the UK is absolutely deplorable. It's even worse than I thought. The UK is asking Twitter, i.e. X, to add a pop-up to anybody in the UK asking their users before they want to post something to verify that they've thoroughly thought through their post before posting it. There are many examples of this. This is just one. There's a guy, 31 years old, named Billy Thompson. He just got 12 weeks in the Hooskow, i.e. jail, prison, for posting the words on Facebook, you know, regarding, you know, the tyrannical operations of the Popo there in the UK. He called them, well, I'm going to be very polite, but these are the words he used. He called them filthy beastards, except, you know, I think you know what I mean when I said the word. He called them filthy bees. And so that landed him 12 weeks in jail. So the fascistic tyranny and communism that's going on in the UK is easily worse than anything I ever saw or experienced living in Soviet Russia. Yeah. Высшего Советского Союза, as they would say in Russian. Yeah, because I actually know what living in Soviet Russia is like, having lived for quite a long time in Soviet Russia. Did you ever think it would get that bad in the UK? It absolutely has. It's not really making the news at all, but this has been admitted to by President Oatmeal Applesauce and Pelosi, is that both of them have admitted to the exact same thing. Biden gave an interview, and you could find it. He admitted that they forced him out, so a COUP. And Pelosi herself, of course, they didn't use the coup word, but that's exactly what happened and transpired. And she admits to it herself. If I told you like a year ago, a half a year ago, that there would be a COUP in the United States, like, no, not here in the United States. No, both parties now admit to it. I mean, I don't care what you think about President Oatmeal Applesauce, and I have absolutely no love for him whatsoever, or any politician for that matter, but they forced him out against his will. I'm pretty sure that is the definition of the word COUP. I don't know if you saw the body cam video footage that was released like 72 hours ago over the happenstance in Pennsylvania from last month, but it is extremely telling and extremely damning. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you've really had your head in a dark spot and or buried in the sand. The FDIC, you're going to love this, just admitted reports that there is a very alarming, quote-unquote, $7.7 trillion worth of uninsured money in U.S. bank deposits. So you and Sari Lou and little Bo Peep, $7.7 trillion of unsecured money. We all know about well, I don't know how many people know about fractional lending, but I like to mention more than half of these are not on anybody's preparedness lists. And I'm a person that's been preparing most of my life. I don't like the word, because they actually had a TV show, and they demonized them. But the people they would actually show in the video that were preppers, it's just off-the-wall sort of nuttiness. And, if you watch that, well, these people that prepare, they're a little bit crazy. They should be living their lives instead of, in perpetual distress. And, of course, being prepared is not about living in fear or distress. I always laugh when people say that. It's like, well, you have house insurance, car insurance, a smoke alarm, a fire extinguisher, life insurance. You don't have that stuff because you're living in fear. But you just know that things happen, and that's why you have smoke alarm and fire insurance and house insurance and car insurance. Some of these you are forced to have. You wear your seatbelt not because you're afraid of car wrecks necessarily, because stuff happens. There's dumb people out there in the world, and some people are inebriated when they're behind the wheel, and bad things can happen, and you're not living in fear. You wear your seatbelt because things happen. Being prepared does not mean you're living in fear. It means just the opposite. I used to be a concealed carry instructor for DOCJT, Department of Criminal Justice Training Division, where basically 90% of my clientele were women. You're empowering them to, you're not actually, unfortunately, allowed to talk about this at the class because it's a governmental class. LF justification. I don't want to say the words for LF justification, but justification for use of certain tools. But, giving instruction outside of the class on marksmanship and, letting people be empowered. Of course, you don't need it anymore in Kentucky since we have constitutional carry, but that's not living in fear. Some of these people actually took the class because they were living in fear, but the percentage was incredibly small. These are people that were interested in being prepared because they know things happen. People that don't live in a fantasy world of lollipops and rainbow sugar canes and Care Bears know that it's a harsh world out there, and if you don't have situational awareness and if you're not prepared for scenarios, then you're in trouble. I used to know a lot of pilots because I used to skydive every day, and the pilots that always fared best when something went down are the ones that would prepare for situations like, total engine failure, flat spin failure. The people that didn't prepare were the ones that were in trouble when something bad happened in the air to their plane. Mechanical failures, storms, anything and everything, which of course can happen to an airplane. So being prepared is the opposite of fear, but getting that out of the way, I'd like to talk about a few things. By the way, as a person that is a genuine expert on solar panels, and I can legitimately say that, like I said, I got solar panels out the yin-yang in this house, all over the place. I've literally got 15 lining the hallway. My hallway is actually quite narrow, not because I'm so fat. Well, I'm not that fat. There are solar panels leaned up against the wall. They're all over the basement. I got foldable ones. The largest, I would never buy a 500 water because they're way too huge. It would take 2 people, and they all have a tempered glass sheet on them. The mere flexure of a solar panel that large, you could just snap it, trying to carefully haul it from one place to the next, and it's just a big no. Those things are meant to go directly from the freight loading truck to the top of your house. I would never mount one on the roof because of hailstorms. Like, yeah, everything up there is ruined. I just wouldn't do it. Yeah, I know there's insurance for that. The largest I recommend, and I have a lot of 340 watt solar panels, are these. These are 200 watts. They're down to $1 a watt now. Currently the price, and I'll have the link below in the description, is $1 a watt. They're $206, so just a super tiny fraction more than $1 a watt. So these are 200 watt solar panels. Any person, whether it be large or small or elderly or whatnot, can pack these around. You can make kickstands for these. You can lean them up against stuff. Of course, you need to have the appropriate charge controllers and power inverters. It's really easy to do, and of course, appropriate batteries. Lithium has gotten so cheap now, I recommend a bank of 2 to 4 200 watts, but my preference are the 300 watt lithiums. The ones behind me here, I got so many, these are always back here. These are 200 amp hour lithium iron phosphate batteries. But redundancy is God, kind of like when I jackknifed through the bottom of that hammock yesterday. Kind of bruised my ego, not really, it just bruised my knees and my elbows getting out of it there. It was a tough situation to get out of that. People don't talk about that. You can have stuff, but if it's of primary importance, not that a hammock is important at all, but it's of primary importance, having redundancy is incredibly important. And people think in terms of stuff. And, having stuff is important for being prepared, but skills always outweigh stuff. But people are lazy to say, well, I'm just going to buy it and I'm going to have it in the corner. It's like, what happens when you need it? You don't know if it's still working. You don't know how to use it. It's like, well, I got the stuff I need to be prepared. It's like, well, that's all well and fine. That's one step. But you need to know and have the skills to make things and build things and fix things. I don't see anybody on any of these channels, and I don't like to watch them because they're so unintelligent, that talk about fundamentally important stuff, and half the list I've got here are important things, like motor oil. You know how many uses you think this is just for changing the oil on your car? This is synthetic, by the way. You know how many things this is useful for other than for your automobile and changing the oil in it? You have any idea? This is an easy replacement for chain oil, in case you don't have chain oil sitting around, which I've got a couple chainsaws. Why don't people talk about stuff like that? One thing I don't hear any prepper channel at all talking about, and I got 200, well, just over 200 acres of same. Well, if you count the 20 acres it's completely cleared, I guess I got 180 acres, is lumber. Ask the Amish about how important lumber is. Huh? You don't see them with any power tools, do you? It's like, that's the hard way around. Yes, it is. But lumber equals heating. It equals money. I have sold lumber off of some of my lands twice. The second time, was 12 walnut trees, and I got just over $5,000 for that. It's money. It cooks your food. It is for trade. I don't hear anybody on any of these places talking about lumber. Wood, trees. People are like, tree, it's beautiful, you can sit underneath it and read a book. No. Practicality of lumber. Heating, money, food, for, cooking your food. Pretty sure staying warm and cooking your food, especially in wintertime, is incredibly important. Trade. I can sell it or I can trade it. You know, I'll trade you a couple trees to add an addition onto the back of your house. My friends, the farmers south of here, they moved from Salt Lake City, my doctor, they have a miniature sawmill. All they have to do is just plop the tree on there. Yeah, I know they have to have a loader to haul the tree up there, and they, you know, rip lumber off of the trees that are on their land. They've got just about 70 acres. Lumber equals housing. Last I recall, lumber equals housing. With a framing nailer and or you know, boxes of nails and a hammer and a saw, preferably, of course, also. You know, you can build additions and housing. You know, I kind of been doing that for thousands of years. I don't hear any prepper place talking about lumber. I never walk in the mall because malls are depressing, but I just wanted to get some exercise today, and I was there at the mall and I walked through it, and leaving there was a nicely dressed guy with his wife and his 2 daughters, and he stopped me and he was giving me a look, and I looked at him like, "Oh, hey, Ken Wheeler. Hey, blah, blah, blah. I watch your videos." He said, "I just bought 10 acres of land in Sadieville. I'm so happy." Everybody that I know that actually buys land, you know, unless they make a really wrong choice, and I've not heard from anybody like that yet, is incredibly happy. You can complain all you want. Well, you don't own the land because you got to pay property tax. You can say that all you want. It's still your land. I'm sorry. You know, you pay your property tax. You know, you might live in a state where property taxes are really high, but Kentucky is not one of them. My 75-acre farm up in eastern Kentucky, 75 acres. Property taxes on it, $110 per year. If you think that's high, then there's something wrong with you. So ask the Amish how important having lumber is. Stacking it for heating, for cooking. It is money, depending on the variety of the tree, obviously. I don't hear anybody talking about that. I've been so busy. I mentioned this. I bought, it's less than 25 acres, more than 15 acres. I don't want to say exactly how large. It's got a cabin on it. Very, very nice cabin. I sold off all my silver. I've been collecting now for the past 10 plus years. Most of it I bought at $17 or less. These are the metals of peace, of course, gold and silver. So I didn't have any gold, but I sold off all my silver. When I loaded it all into my truck, and I could actually feel the truck dragging under the weight of hundreds of pounds of silver. I took it down to the coin dealer. I got rid of it all, and I bought a piece of land that came up immediately beside mine. It's actually touching my current land. So now I got a second farm and a second cabin. Second cabin is really nice. Got brand new floorings in it and a kitchen. I bought that like 2 months ago. But I haven't seen it since I bought it because I am literally that stinking busy. You know, it's like, okay, great, I have it. I can't enjoy it. I can't go see it, but I do have it. It is mine. You could say, well, there's a forest fire. Your lumber could all vanish in a flash. Well, I've got land here and there all over Kentucky, so it's not going to hit the entire state of Kentucky, so this is why you shouldn't have all your eggs in one basket. But the great thing about land, and I can't stress land enough, is that, say nothing happens, and that's not the case because it's going down. I only bought it 2 months ago. I could sell that land with the cabin on it for 150% over what I paid for it right now. I know I can. I know what land's value is. It's got 2 springs on it, for God's sakes. Now I have 3 springs. 1, 2, 3. These 2 are super easy access. The one spring is just literally a 5-minute walk down from the front of the cabin. No steep hill or anything like that. Super easy access. There's a cute little frog that lives in there, and he's doing his duty in it, but hey, I've got water filtration. I'm not actually worried about that. It is a spring. It's got a stone fence around it, about 2 feet tall, a fence, an enclosure, excuse me, from back in the pioneer days. It's been a non-stop water source, whether super dry or not, since the time of the pioneers. You know, the little house in the prairie days. I can't stress how important land is. It feeds you. You raise cattle on it. I mean, I've got leathers. I got 4 leather sewing machines here. I would never want to get into tanning hides, but if I had to, I could certainly do it. I know how to make my own clothing. I spent 10 hours yesterday doing leather goods. I made 3 leather satchels and 2 leather totes. I sold all of them last night. Like that reason why I sold them so quick is I actually listed them too cheap. Those are the skills that I'm talking about. I could take a roll of leather, it was elk and buckskin, and I made some beautiful bags, and people bought them up. I really sold them too cheap, but... Then there's the metals of unrest. I call these the metals of force. The reason why I got rid of all my silver is I know silver really well. I know land even better, but I know both really, really well. And I made a choice in my head. I made a super logical decision to part with the silver. I would much, much rather had the land. Yeah, sorry, just much rather have the land and the cabin that's on it. A very, very beautiful cabin. Very nice with a septic system on it, and it's got a brand new electrical system in it. I can power easily with solar. Here's a little trick. If you're worried about things collapsing, I don't know if you know this or not, but there's a neat little thing. Look into what it is. Unsecured debt. Like the loan you got for your house or your car. In other words, if you stop paying on it, they will take back your house and your car. That's called secure debt. Well, take a guess what unsecured debt is. Take a look into unsecured debt. There you have a chance at getting things that you need. You're still obligated to pay. You're still obligated to pay, but look into what unsecured debt is. A lot of people say, well, I can't get these things, you know, I've got a wife and kids, and it's like, well, where there's a will, there's a way. Yeah, just look into the parameters of this neat little thing called unsecured debt, which I don't hear anybody talking about. My entire life I've known not to buy cheap plastic garbage to get indestructible things. These 1960s and 70s can openers, which will never essentially break. Things that I know are going to last for, you know, without breaking these, and of course they have tempered glass on the front of them. You know, I know what the life of these more advanced, modern monocrystalline solar panels are, but as long as you take halfway decent care of them, you know, they're going to last you for the rest of your life. And, you know, and I love the fact that my one cabin is powered by solar. I run the whole cabin. I'm never going to have an electrical bill. It takes me, once I have the wiring set up and the hole drilled in the wall or the floor, it takes me about an hour and a half to set up to set up a solar system for a cabin, or in this case a house, for emergency backup, like mini fridges, like this little mini fridge behind me here. You know, your computers, your phones, recharge your radios for communications and listening in. You know, it's not going to power your air conditioning, and it's not going to power your, you know, your heating system. And you wouldn't want to run your hair dryer off of it. Of course, I have no need of a hair dryer, but look into unsecured debt. Look into indestructible things that you're only ever going to need to buy one of. People don't talk about this. Also, to look into asset diversification. Like I said, I've been investing in silver most of my life. I've been buying it since I was young. The pile that I had accumulated, I got rid of because I'd much rather had this beautiful, beautiful farm with a cabin. I don't regret it. Don't let anybody know what you have. I know I'm violating that right now myself, but as a former concealed carry instructor and a marksmanship teacher, I am not too concerned about that. I'm not afraid of anybody or anything, but don't let people know what you have. You can't make a job, and right now things are getting tough, selling irrelevant things. I was walking in the mall today, I just thought, for a second, I'm not into gaming, I don't play games, but I went to this gaming store. I think it's called CB Games. I saw people looking at Pokemon cards and games and plastic rolling dice and any form of plastic trash irrelevancy. The number one, the absolute thing that within a nanosecond will become absolutely useless beyond belief. People, I just wanted to scream out to the whole store. It's like, instead of wasting your money on this trash, you ever think about buying some land? Or some solar panels? You know, something that you actually need. You know, you can't suspend your life, I know, and you still gotta eke a little bit of happiness out of life, you know, before things get worse and worse and worse, and before the camel's back gets broken, and even the dumbest people are like, oh my God, it's finally hit. You know, that tattooed bald guy on YouTube was right the whole time. Everything's collapsed. And man, things are collapsing fast. I mean, they are collapsing fast. They call it the 2030 agenda, but it's going to happen way before 2030. So you can't make a job in tough times selling irrelevant trash. Look into getting medical supplies, tools. You know, my favorite tool in the whole world is a framing nailer and a power drill. Looking into having a nice shortwave radio and or the communication devices like I talked about before, these Baofeng receivers, 2 meter 440, also 2 walkie-talkie frequencies and 8 watts of output. The other two things that I use the most all the time are wire and rope. It's actually called accessory rope. It's way, way better than paracord. Paracord is garbage. And I'm selling my Florida house, but after taxes and splitting it with my folks, I'm not going to have that much money, but I'm selling the house in Florida. I'm going to buy a small mountain, a small mountain of paving stones and cinder blocks. Have a million uses. People don't consider raw materials like that so important, but I'll tell you what China has done is that they have separate caves. You could go look this up for different components that make one thing. I'll let you guess what that one. They have a cave dedicated to lead. You know, just scrap lead and giant 2,000-pound ingots of lead. They have a separate cave dedicated to copper and brass. And they have a totally separate cave with a gazillion barrels full of potassium nitrate. All of these caves combined, you know, merge into creating one thing. I'll let you figure out what that one thing is. Pew, 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 pew. That's thinking ahead. People don't think like that. It's like, well, I'm not a government, I can't think like that. You know, you're not, but you could think like that on a small scale. I don't have any money. I've only got like $4,600 to my name. Oh yeah, you can't be poor, you just bought a farm. Yeah, you know how I got it? Over 10 years of collecting silver, I dumped it all at once. And you know, I sat there and pounced. You know, I kept a tight watch. I'm in contact with realtors. You know, this land right next to mine with the cabin on it came up for sale. It's like, I have no way of buying that. But, silver is way up, especially from what I paid for it. I'm going to dump all my silver. I told the realtor that. I sold it. I bought it. It's a beautiful cabin. Drop dead gorgeous. Showed people pictures of it on live stream. So just think about making yourself prepared on fronts that these silly prepper channels, I'm sorry, but they're silly. I don't hear any of them talking about lumber. I don't hear any of them talking about the fact that redundancy is God or investing in indestructible things. You know, back when they made things to last in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, things built to last, made by Americans or made in Deutschland or made in the UK. I know how bad it's getting, and the only metals I'm currently invested in is HVL. That's a specific type of metal. I'll let you figure out what HVL stands for. It's a type of metal that moves very fast. And look into unsecured debt. And look about being able to power your own stuff. Yeah, you can't power your AC unless you have like a lot of money's worth in it. Look into getting some solar panels. I have a link to these Renogy 200-watt solar panels below. I've got a ton of them. They're the perfect size to get. Anything smaller than that, like the 100s, 175s? No. 175s are way, just a few dollars more. From the 175, you know, you can get the 200. So this is the perfect size for portability or for, you know, taking in and out of your house. I've got 2 of them permanently mounted outside. I'm going to put a third one out there, but I don't need more than that. If I need to, I'll add a third, and it'll take me less than a half an hour to do it. So check out the link for the solar panel below, and also put the link to the best recommended charge controller and power inverter also too, which I did not bring out here, but this is the size of a 200-watt monocrystalline advanced solar panel with high efficiency. So I read every comment, tell me what you think, and I'll catch you on live stream. Lux Veritas.